Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra, and in this video I'm going to share with you everything I made in the second quarter of 2024. We have finished objects, we have whips, we have a stash update, the whole 9 yards. I like to keep it concise and short, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything major. So let's jump right in. Starting with finished objects, the first project I finished in Q2 was the quintessential cardigan. This is a design by Church Mouse Yarns and Tees. It's a DK weight cardigan, knit in pieces and seamed together with a set-in sleeve shoulder construction. It is a pattern I made once before. The first time was for a gift. I made a video dedicated to talking about my experience knitting this pattern. I will link that for your viewing pleasure. What I will say is that I have worn this piece several times. Each time I've worn it to work, I work in a corporate setting, casual corporate, so not quite business casual, but I do enjoy looking put together when I go to the office. And this is a really, really good piece to have in my wardrobe. And I'm just thrilled about how wearable it has been for me. I think there are more quintessential cardigans in my future in different colors, but for this version, I am very pleased with the turnout. The second project I finished in Q2, I don't have with me because they were a gift, a pair of vanilla socks for my aunt. Really nothing special about it. My go-to pattern is Summerly Knits I'm So Basic socks. So I use that as a template. I think I knit 64 stitches. My aunt has smaller feet than me, narrower feet than me. I find that most adult women have smaller feet than me. I have rather large feet. So it was a really unexpectedly quick project. I guess I kind of forgot how fast and easy plain stockinette socks are. And it was a nice change to knit this pair of socks for my aunt. After knitting back-to-back textured socks of some sort. My aunt really appreciated the gift and I was happy to give it to her. So yeah, that's my second finished object for Q2. My third finished object for Q2 is another pair of socks. This pair, not quite vanilla, but rather close enough. These are a 3x1 pair of socks. I've mentioned these socks a couple of times on this channel, sort of in passing. Yeah, just a basic 3x1 rib all the way down the leg and through the top of the foot, and a slip stitch heel flap and gusset heel construction. These are also based off the Summerly Knits I'm So Basic sock pattern, but obviously I switched around the texture, so I didn't follow that pattern to a T. These turned out really nice. They're very drapey and cozy and warm. I brought these with me to Iceland, which is another thing that I did in Q2, but it's not a knitting project, so it won't be a highlight of this video. But yeah, these are a really good pair of socks. I use the Lang alpaca socks, so they have quite a bit of a halo to them. It's a very fuzzy fabric that it makes. And yeah, I think these are going to get a lot of wear in the fall and winter months. And I'm glad that they're done. My fourth finished object of Q2 is another project that I do not physically have to show you because this project was knit as a part of a knit swap with an internet friend, Sue Min. So weeks and weeks ago, I shared in my Instagram stories the idea of doing a knit swap where they would each knit projects of the other knitter's choice and at the end swap them. So for me, this really came from my disdain for colorwork knitting. I don't enjoy colorwork knitting, and if I want a colorwork project, I'm not going to endure knitting it. So the knit swap was my way to get a colorwork sweater without having to knit a colorwork sweater. And Sumin, who I partnered with for this experiment, requested I knit the gown cardigan of her design in Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the color Nature's Brown. So I knit that up over the course of about a month, just under. It was a really fun project. It was a really fun idea. I'm so glad I did it. The cardigan turned out really well. Had a blast doing that. I don't know what else to say about it other than if you have someone who's willing to do a knit swap with you and you trust their knitting skills and their sincerity, I guess, then I would highly recommend coordinating a knit swap with a knitting friend of yours. And if you do, let me know how it goes. I'm a fan. So an honorable mention finished object related to the gown cardigan is the sweater that Suman knit for me as a part of the knit swap. So as I mentioned, I do not like knitting color work. And for a long time, months now, well over a year, I'm sure, I've had a skein of hand spun yarn that my friend Felicia made for me. And I have been struggling to figure out what to do with it because I knew that it would be perfect for color work, but I think deep down knew that I didn't want to knit color work or worse, attempt a color work project and not have it turn out the way I wanted to. I toggled through a number of different potential patterns, but every time I think I settled on one, I just chickened out because I didn't want to knit color work. So when this knit swap came around, it was a perfect opportunity to use this hand spun in a project without me needing to knit color work. And the pattern I chose was the Throwover by Andrea Mowry. I know you're probably shocked that I chose an Andrea Mowry pattern, but she has some patterns that I do really enjoy. And the Throwover is one of them that I really liked, but I had no desire to knit because, again, color work. So that is the pattern that I chose for myself. The main color yarn I chose is the Cascade 220 in non-superwash in the color navy. And the 3 contrast colors, this top one is Woolstock Worsted by Blue Sky Fibers, and the color, I cannot remember, but whatever their cream white color is. This metal contrast color is my friend's hand-dyed Felicia. She's One Whip Wonder over on Instagram. She gifted me this hand spun and I have quite a bit left over, so I'm excited to figure out what to do with it next. And then this bottom contrast color, which is a similar value to the main color, so it may not be very obvious, but it's a dark brown superwash worsted yarn from my stash. So all 3 of these contrast colors came from my stash. So I mailed them to Suman for the project, and then the navy blue Cascade 220 I didn't have in my stash. I had to order it, and I just placed an order on Wool & Company's website and had the yarn mailed directly to her. So when she received the contrast colors in the main color, she was off to the races, and I think she finished this in like 2 weeks. I think she like sneezed and the sweater was done. I took considerably more time for my project that I sent to her, but in the end, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and according to her, she's very happy with how the cardigan turned out. So I think this is 100% a successful endeavor, and I'm really glad I decided to put that idea out there on Instagram and somebody took me up on the offer. The final finished object I completed in Q2 was another pair of socks, 3 pairs of socks in Q2. And I believe I finished 3 pair in Q1. So in total for 2024, I've completed 6 pairs of hand knit socks, which is crazy because 6 completed pair is my goal for the entire year. So I don't know if I'm just going to not knit socks for the rest of the year. I think that's highly unlikely, mainly because I have a lot of sock yarn that I need to work through. So if anything, I'm really glad that I've been working through socks a lot faster than I anticipated. So yeah, I want to lean into that momentum and continue to knit socks at a relatively fast pace. And we'll see how many completed pairs I can end up with at the end of this year. Here is the pair of socks I finished. So a basic 2x2 rib, slip stitch heel flap and gusset, basic wedged toe. And this again is based on the pattern, the I'm So Basic sock pattern by Summerly Knits. You're probably tired of me mentioning that. If I'm doing a simple sock with a texture that I come up with on my own, then I'm always going to be using that pattern. These are a gift for my cousin who I will be seeing on a family vacation in Jamaica the first week of July. So I'm glad I was able to get these done in time for that trip. And the yarn is Universal Yarns Uni Merino in the color something. My Ravelry project page has all of the yarns that I use in my projects if you're curious about specifics. But it's a nice charcoal gray color. It leans kind of blue. It has a blue undertone to it. And it has some subtle heathering. I think it's a really nice yarn. It is a commercial yarn, and I think it is very sturdy and comfortable, not itchy at all. So for a gift, I think this is a really good option for a gift sock. And those are all of the finished objects that I completed in Q2. So let's talk about WIPs. I only have 2 to talk about. The first WIP I have is the Citrine sweater by Emily Green. It is a worsted weight pattern, knit in pieces and seam together, of course. So far I have completed the back panel, and as you can see from the fold marks, this has been sitting for quite some time. I can't remember when I started this project, but I'm pretty sure it was in April, so towards the beginning of the second quarter. And I finished the back panel, and around that time, it was time for me to switch gears and work on my knit swap project, the cardigan that I sent to Suman. And by the time I finished that cardigan, I wasn't really interested in going back to a worsted weight pullover, because I knew that if I focused on it and finished it, it would be great, but I would not be the right weather to wear it. So I would kind of finish it and then put it away for several months before I came back to it. And I figured my time would be better spent on more weather appropriate projects for the next couple of months at least. So I made an intentional decision to put this WIP down, and I have not touched it in maybe a couple of months at this point. The yarn I'm using is this Walcott Yarns Origin. This is a 50% merino, 50% Highland wool, and the color is Sea Lion. I purchased a sweater quantity of this yarn at Cake Palooza in 2022. And originally this yarn was knit up into a Lila Now sweater, which is a bottom up raglan colorwork sweater. I knit that as a part of a knit along, and I was never 100% happy with how it turned out. So I decided to frog it completely, soak the yarn, reset it, and knit it up into something that I knew I would get more wear out of. And that is how this WIP came to be. It took me a lot of time to build up to the decision to finally rip out the Lila Now. It can always be difficult to go back to a finished project and either fix it or rip it out completely and switch gears and make something else. It's a kind of a humbling experience because, you know, it would be a lie to say that all of my finished projects are just absolutely perfect and I don't have to go back and do anything to them. But the reality is we all have those projects that we are just not happy with. And it takes a little bit of humility to go back and adjust those in whatever way makes sense. And this is one of those projects for me. So the yarn is completely frogged and reset, and the new whip is in progress. I probably won't pick this back up again until maybe mid to late September timeframe, when the weather starts to cool back up, or just before the weather starts to properly cool off, so that I can spend a few weeks dedicated on this project. And by the time the weather breaks, I will have a freshly completed sweater to wear, which is exciting. But in the meantime, I'm putting this down to focus on summer knits. And speaking of summer knits, that is a perfect segue into my second and final work in progress to share with you on this video. And that is the Skyline Tee by Tori Yu. So this is going to be awkward to show because I just started it yesterday, and it is not in a very easy to show state right now. This is what we're working with. Yeah, I don't even know why I bothered pulling that up. Yeah, this probably makes no sense to anyone unless you're familiar with the pattern. So this is a saddle shoulder. This is the first saddle shoulder project I've ever knit. And so I cast on these rectangles on either side. This is going to go over the top of the shoulder, essentially. I knit 2 of those, and then I pick stitches up along the sides of those 2 pieces of fabric, and I just completed the short rows along the top of the back. And from here, I think I have like 5 or 6 inches to knit with no shaping to complete the back panel. And then I'll pick stitches up on the other side of these rectangles to do the neck shaping, join the front, knit the front down, and eventually I will connect the front and back and knit the body in the round. So yeah, this is about a day's worth of work. It is fingering weight, so it's not going to be growing as rapidly as maybe a DK or worsted weight project will be, but because it's fingering, I think it's going to be a very wearable piece, especially for the summer. It is a superwash wool nylon sock yarn. I think the yarn is Ancient Fiber Arts Socknado in the color Davy Jones Locker. I have 3 skeins of these that I purchased from a D-stash. If you watched my stash and tell video about all of my sock yarns, I mentioned this yarn in particular. I don't know that I had fully committed to what project I would make with that yarn, but suffice it to say, I've settled on a project, and it is going to be the Skyline Tee. It is a hand-dyed yarn, which is a slight concern because I have absolutely no intention of alternating skeins, and that is contrary to the better judgment of many knitters out there. I can't be bothered. If I live to regret that, then, I'll deal with that when I get to that point. But as of right now, I have no intention to alternate skeins, and yeah, we'll see how this project progresses. But so far, I feel pretty confident that I won't have any major issues with that. The fabric I'm getting looks really even. I mean, there's obviously some slight variegation. I don't know if this is technically a tonal yarn, I believe. But as it's knit up, you can definitely see the different hues of the color within the fabric, but it doesn't look unintentional or sloppy. So as long as the yarn continues to work up this way, I think I'll be okay. I have some loose project plans going into Q3. Obviously, I want to finish the 2 whips I just showed you, but I also want to cast on a hat as a gift for my husband, a Musselburgh hat in a dark gray color. And I don't know if my next big garment project is going to be another summer piece. I anticipate the last week of July, the Skyline tee should be done. And going into August, I don't know if I want to embark on another summer knit or pivot back to knitting sweaters, in which case I'll jump back to my citrine pullover that I showed you, or cast on a new sweater if I'm feeling reckless. So I don't have a lot in the way of project plans. I know my immediate plans that involve finishing my existing whips, but beyond that, I haven't put a lot of thought into it. I really want to make the book club cardigan by Sari Nordlund. I don't have yarn for it. I really don't want to buy more yarn. Yeah, we'll see what speaks to me. The reality is, in terms of big garment projects, larger garment projects, I have a few options in my stash that I can choose from. I just haven't committed to anything yet. And I think once I get to the point of, being ready to cast on another garment, I will see what feels right. I'll see what feels right in my stash, and yeah, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. And obviously when that happens, you guys will find out about it eventually. I'm not keeping any secrets. I'm just saying that, in terms of plans, I don't have a whole lot to speak of. And my camera is about to die, so let me quickly show you